Austin, Texas real estate. So, what is happening in Austin, Texas? Well, first and foremost, we have started to see a decrease in the number of active listings. So, my name's Danielle Fountain. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, and we're taking a data-driven all-in-one approach to real estate. So, we're going to dive in today. We're going to talk about what is happening in our active inventory, what's with pending, what's with sales. We're also going to talk a little bit about interest rates. What are we seeing right now compared to what we saw in 2024? And if you hold on the full time, we're also going to take a look to see what happened in November as far as our sales and pending data. And also, where are we currently for the month of December? So without further ado, I am going to hop on and I am going to pull up some numbers and we're going to talk about them. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a message on this, a comment, or shoot me a message afterwards. So without further ado, we'll throw these numbers up here on stage. So first things first, what you're going to do is I compare week over week. So kind of this was like that Thanksgiving week. So that's what you're going to see. This first column, we're talking about what's active. Then over here, we're talking about what happened week over week. So you're going to see the numbers up here, but I'm going to give you some context behind them. So first off, our active listings are at 2,540. And so while that might seem like a lot of listings, one of the big things I like to do is say, hey, where were we throughout the year? So at one point in this year, so in June, we had 4,290 listings. So we've fallen by over 1,700 listings from our peak in June. That being said, where we are as far as our December numbers and the numbers of houses that we have, it has been lower than every single year until we go all the way back to 2016. So from 2017 all the way until through last year, this year we have the highest number of listings, so almost in the past decade, for the month of December. So with that being said, our average price point, we're a little over 1.05 million. If you followed along earlier this year, we were over 1.25. Now that's for listing, not for necessarily what goes under contract. Another thing that you'll be seeing, and kind of probably why our listing prices are a little bit higher, is we used to see a lot of luxury properties in Austin just never even hit the MLS. But if you followed along with Austin real estate, it's been very, very slow for sellers. So prior, you might have had sellers that kept their house off market. They kept it in luxury networks. Why? Well, being a non-disclosure state, anything to keep a price out of the appraisers, the tax appraisers' hands, it worked to their benefit. So you'll see sometimes with those really high-end properties, they might not even touch the MLS because of that. Also, if you have a celebrity or an influential figure, or maybe it's a high-profile divorce, they may not necessarily want to put that information on the open market. So we are seeing average price point of 1.055, our median at 625. Earlier this year, our median, if we go back to like the peak and we go back to the summer time frame, we're looking at like 749 was kind of where our peak was, kind of right around there. But right now, we are all the way back at 625. Now, our days on market are continuing to increase. So 106 days on market. So for the average, so we're looking at 3.5 months about for the average house on the market, as well as over 2.5 months for the median house on the market. This is kind of the interesting thing, is the number of listings with the price reduction. At one point, we were over 60%. Now we're around 55%. And so with that being said, that is kind of typical of what we've seen in the past 4 or 5 years. Having a 55%, 60% of our listings with price reduction, that's normal. For this year, what was different was we had escalating price decreases starting back at like May timeframe, way earlier than normal, because normally it takes till fall until we see huge price drops. Now, we've seen a lot. That number's kind of staying consistent, and that's due to houses being taken off the market. They're withdrawing them or putting them on hold, as well as you're seeing houses that get sold, eventually do get sold. And we're going to see that in our pending data, the number of houses that have had price reductions that have been sold. With that, you can see the number of new listings. We drastically dropped down this past week, 126. That is also because of the fact that we're just over the Thanksgiving holiday. Typically, we don't see a lot of new listings come on, though there are some. I said we had a house that we listed this past week because we did an analysis, last week. We did an analysis and we saw that in this specific area of Cedar Park, there were less than 2 months of supply. And if we went 3 to 6 months prior, it was sitting like 6 months and 4.5 months for supply. And we talked to my sellers, instead of waiting till the spring, we're like, why don't we take advantage of it? And for them in Cedar Park, we took pictures on Wednesday, we listed it on Thursday, and we got it under contract this week on Wednesday. So less than a week of it actually on the active market, because in that specific area and at that price point, there was an inventory. So you have to kind of know what's happening in your market. We are seeing an uptick in buyers year over year, but just in specific little areas, not for Austin, general overall. With that, you can see, hey, here's our new listing kind of prices. They're lower expected. The houses that are coming on, they're people really wanting to move. We're not probably going to see a lot of luxury houses hit the market. Typically, we'll see more of those start to come on in February and March. Overall, if we look at where are these listings that are going off the market, where is this happening? So 147 went off the market this week. Whether they were put on hold, there's 31 of them, withdrawn 100, and expired 16. So not a lot of expired listings coming up. It looks like people are pulling it before they are getting expired. If you look right here, days on market, we're looking at 83 for on hold, 95 for withdrawn, and 130 for expired. And if we take a look at that, if we kind of look up above, we're seeing the days on market from properties, some of them are taking a little bit longer to sell. So that's why you're going to see that here. If you're just joining me, my name is Danielle Fountain. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, where we take a data-driven all-in-one approach to real estate. If you're following, please subscribe, or if you're on X, repost this out so that other people can capture this or save it. So if you want to go back and reference numbers, you can. With that being said, we're going to drop into pending listings. So pending listings are my favorite part of the market, in the sense of you can see actually real time what's happening. If you're looking at sold data, you're looking at data too late. You're looking at data that's probably 30 to 45 days old, because really the market is what happens in that instance, and that's what's happening in the pending market. So with that being said, there are 752 pendings. We have seen a drop down in the pendings throughout the year. Typically, we'll see our numbers drop the lowest right here in December. We'll start seeing an increase in that number. Starts kind of in the beginning of January. We'll see that number tick up. So right now, 752 of single family homes in Austin are pending. Not a huge amount. With that, we had 121 new pending listings this past week. Over Thanksgiving, we had 123. So last week we had 123, which it's a drop from when we were seeing 160s. If we look at, here's our pending that what we've been experiencing. I'm going to throw this up a little bit larger so that you can see it. So we are 121. What I like to track is the number of pendings. I like to track, here's that week over week increase is what you're seeing on that column. And then what I also like to track is what's the interest rate, because interest rates do matter. And we do see an increase in the number of pendings when interest rates drop. Anytime we saw it drop down, we would see like an increase. So you're seeing kind of here, we saw an increase back in September. Now we had 123, and you can see right here in November, we just kind of shut off. So we were seeing a lot of activity increase in that October timeframe. And that was because we got interest rates at one point got down in September, right? Like it's right around that 6.11. It was kind of the same thing last year that we saw. Now, this time last year, interest rates went up close to 7. So you can see, hey, we're 121 pending. Last week over Thanksgiving, we were 123. If we go back to last year, and this is where it was really interesting, last year over Thanksgiving, it dropped all the way down to 82. Now, last year, we had the interest rates were higher. So you're going to see right here, it's going to be very interesting to see, are we going to see more buyers come back? What is kind of happening right now? So you're going to see last year, our interest rates, we stayed in the 7s all the way through about February. While we saw like a pickup in buyers kind of happened in that February and March timeframe, but for the most part last year, we stayed above 6.5%. And I'll pull this. And in some of these weeks, we might have dipped down a little bit, but we didn't see a 6.5 until August. And if you've been following me, you saw that we had the worst April in the past like 20 plus years, the worst March in the past 20 plus years, as far as like the number of sales and buyers. It was horrible, which you're seeing that with interest rates. When we saw interest rates go over 6, we definitely saw a drop. When we see them go over 7, it's just like, the wheels come off. We stop seeing buyers. So the fact that we're in the low sixes is very interesting. I've had a few buyers that have actually gotten quoted in the fives without points. It just depends on what their down payment is, what their credit score is, different things like that go into figuring out what someone's interest rate is going to be. So that being said, we did see a drop off. This week is more than even last year. I feel like there are buyers out there, but I feel like buyers, almost like buyers have a little bit of analysis by paralysis, or there's too many choices right now because our inventory is so much higher that they're kind of taking their time to see if anything else comes on the market. Are we seeing any price drops? Because at the same time, we'll see houses that have been sitting for 100 days that all of a sudden go pending. So with that being said, let's drop into, so we talked about pending. We talked about the fact that we have 121 this week. So a little bit less, two less than last week, especially over the holiday. Other things that the reason this number might be off is there are some agents that they're supposed to have their house changed in 48 hours to say, hey, it's gone pending. There's been some agents that wait until the option period is over to change it to pending. They're not supposed to. So sometimes when I pull the data like next week, I'll go back and refresh this week to see if it went up. There is a chance that it could go up because you have agents that don't want to mark a house pending until they get through option period. In case the house falls back on the market, it's like the kiss of death. They don't want that to happen. So with that, we're seeing the average price point for a pending around $824 and median $599. So you can kind of see it dropped over week. Our average price point has continued drops, which we're also going to see on the sold side. Days on market, expect all of our days on market to go up if our active inventory days on market are going up. If we see the average and median days on market drop down drastically, that could be a signal, and not in the active side, but just on the pending side, that could be a signal that buyers are there, they're waiting, and they're waiting for new homes to hit the market. And as soon as that home that they want hits the market, they're going under contract. So that also may be a sign. And then of this 61%, so a large percentage of these houses have had a price drop, which is indicative of the days on market, where we are for days on market. So now let's flip over and we are going to talk about sales data. Now, so sales data, the number of sales data, it's outdated, I say, by like 30, 45 days, because pending data is really going to give it. What is interesting from the sales data that you're going to see is our ratios. So we're talking about what's the closed price versus list price, and closed price versus the original list price. That's really going to tell us like how much are sellers like giving away to get their house under contract. And if you have just joined me, my name is Danielle Fountain. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, where we take a data-driven, all-in-one approach to real estate. So here we are for our pending. So our close, So you can see our close data, we actually went up 25 week over week, which makes sense because last Thursday with Thanksgiving, we don't see a lot of people on that Thursday, on that Friday close homes. Instead, they're closing them this week. Fair enough. We did see an increase in, this is kind of crazy, our increase in our sales price, our average price went up. More than likely, we had some really low prices from October that just fell off. But that's why I like to look at like median. Did median drastically change? A little bit, but it might also be back to those 30 days. We're seeing the days on market very much similar, but here's where I dive into is where are sellers, where's the pain point of the sellers? So for close price to list price, we're seeing about 3.5% under close price to list price is the average, and about 3% is the median. So that's overall in Austin, single family homes, you're expecting homes are closing about 3 to 3.5% on the average and median of the list price. If we go to the original list price, we're looking at 7% under for your median, so at 93%, and we're looking at your average about 8.4% underneath. So you're looking at 7 to like 8.5% from the original list price. Use both of those when we're talking general Austin. If you are looking to buy in a specific part of Austin, you need a niche in, because this might not be true for the area. It might be substantially worse. You might be in the 80s, or it could be significantly better. You might be in the higher 90s. If there's not as much inventory and if there's a higher demand for that area, you're going to see it move. Maybe even the lower price points tend to, depending on where they fall and where there are buyers looking. So with that, we are going to hop over and we are going to talk about how did November for Austin, Texas, how did November end up for sales data, and we're going to compare it to month over month, year over year, and kind of historical numbers. So if we look at our monthly, and we're going to pull this up, and I'm not going to show you December's yet. We'll talk about December's, but let's really talk about what happened in November. So here in November, and we probably will see another 2 weeks of houses coming online as far as the sales data, because unfortunately you're supposed to close it out in a couple days after the house closes. It doesn't happen. We typically, especially with like new home construction, a lot of them come a lot later. They don't get pulled and put as sold. So we'll probably see these numbers go up through the end of the year. So with that, we had 571 homes that have closed to date in November. Now, this is less than last year. Last year, we were at 587. I expect, do I think that we'll get 16 more? Yes. But I think that this November and last November, we were very much on par for the numbers. So this data right here, these numbers are year over year. This is month over month. The big shocker, though, is the price point. So year over year, it was like a 52,000 decrease, like 6.5%. So if we look at year over year for the prices of homes closing out in Austin, 6.5% reduction. For the median price, we were down 13,000, so a little over 2%. That is showing it's the different price points that sellers are listing at, but right here really shows you our sellers giving more. And we see close price to list price and close price to the median and the average, and we're seeing, yes, they're going between, it's like a 1% to 0.29% lower than last year. Now, to the original list price, we're very, very similar. Big thing it also might be is sellers that are bringing their houses to market might be starting their houses at a lower price point to begin with. If we look at the month over month is drastic. We're seeing our average sales price was down almost 10%, like 9.26%. The median, 1% higher. I mean, it's going to really tell what is the average house looking at. That's also why I actually started putting in square footage. So this is really interesting, is the square footage was larger of what was selling, but the prices were down. And even if we go down here, so the median square footage was down if we look at month over month, which might mean why median price was a little bit up. Other than that, they're very similar. Like this right here, as far as close price to list price month over month, we're kind of staying right on trend. There's nothing, sellers have kind of given their all, reduced their prices. We are seeing a lot of houses be put on hold or withdrawn, which will also affect the numbers. Now, this is kind of where I say it can kind of not get nasty, but to compare where we were in December of last year. So when we talk about like home prices and did I see home prices falling? And it was one of those things early on, I said I did think home prices were falling. In September, when we saw interest rates go down and we saw an active buyer, I thought, okay, maybe we're going to see something different. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to push us over. So you are seeing, compared to where we closed out December of last year, right now we're a little over 8% lower on our average sales price. Our median sales price is at 3.7%. So I thought we'd be like between 3 and 5%. That's right where we are for our median, but our average is significantly more. When we go, and we're going to go up, and we are going to look at December's data. Now, December's data, we'll probably see a big push at the end. There's a lot of new homes, new constructions that you'll see people doing price cuts because they want to close out their books this year. They want the money on the table this year. That's when you're going to start seeing this. So even though we've only had 263, that's a 405 difference from last year. Typically, December's numbers are going to be higher right at the end as people are making every push to get it. Which, if you are looking to buy, December historically has been one of the best months to get a good deal because we are right at the holiday season. Sellers at the end of the day maybe desperate. They're really listing their house. There's a reason their house is on the market and they're trying to move it. And especially if they've had numerous price cuts, they need to sell their house. With that being said, this is where it's a great opportunity. People tend to like to buy in that March, April timeframe, but that's also when a lot of other people buy. So if you're looking in like the March, April timeframe, and that's kind of where you are, you might want to consider looking a little bit early. It's not going to necessarily hurt you to look early if you find the one, because then you can make a lower offer if it's been on the market for a long time. If we were to go back, and I'm going to do this right now so you can see it. So if you're a buyer and you're looking at like the March, April timeframe to buy, so let's go to March's data or April's data. If we look at April's data, look at our close right here. So this is our close price to list price. We're looking at like 97, 98%, 95, and 97%. So you're looking at like, for close to original list price, you're looking at like 3 to 4.5% under. If we look at right now, you're looking at like 7 to 9% under of the list price, of the original list price. So when I say that you can get a better deal technically in December, I'm showing you the data in the math. I'm not necessarily just saying it because I feel it that way. I'm showing you what the data is saying. So that's where you can kind of see, hey, you could get a better deal in these timeframes, as well as if you look at like the sales price too. We're like 858, 630, and if we go back to April, actually it's whoa. See, this is where I eat my words. This is where I like data. Is I want to see. So we're at 840 and 627. So not much difference. Actually, where it picks up, this is where it starts to pick up. Typically in May. May is, so if you're going under contract in April, you're going to see it in May. But that still goes back to the deals because you're not seeing these percentages. So it's different houses that are selling. So with that being said, right now we're seeing that our difference, so if we look at our median, our average, we're seeing it higher year over year, which is very interesting from what I just showed you in November. So if there's active buyers that were active in November, you're going to see their data right here in December. So you're seeing our prices have gone up, and that's year over year. If we look over month, so this right now is showing that year to date we're going to be positive. So November was really rough, but right here December. So December could end up being a stronger month than November. It could end up being one of the strongest months. But here's why I don't think that. So we see average at 858. If we go back over to our pending data right here. Our pending data, we're at 824 and 599. So I expect for this month, I expect this to drop down. I expect us to be in the 7s and the 5s. It's just probably, it's whatever houses are closing out. They're giving us these higher numbers right now. You can see right here, we're also talking, they're getting a better deal right here because we're seeing our closed price to list price. We're dropping that 9% under or 7% under that we're seeing right here. When I said that December is a better month than November, here's our month over month data that we're seeing. And we're seeing right now our prices are $101,000 higher month over month. It's just a different buyer. It's the different buyer, the price point that they're buying right now. We're not seeing drastic drops in the closed price to list price. It's different houses that are being bought. You're seeing that we're up like 57 square feet for our month over month. But year over year, we're down 41. So with that, I'm going to close this out. And to kind of summarize, so to kind of summarize it is, yes, we've seen a decrease in the number of listings. So at one point we were at 4,200 plus listings that were active here in Austin. That's in like the June, July timeframe. We've dropped over 1,700 listings to here in the winter timeframe. That is normal. However, our number even now, we're over 2,500 listings, is still higher all the way back. We have to go all the way back to 2016 to find a December with more listings. When it comes to like our pending data, we're actually higher than where we were. So if we go back all the way to the beginning of last year, the number of pendings as far as the number of listings that are pending, last year at the end of December, we were at like 622. And today, I'm pulling that up today, we're at like 752. So we are seeing more houses that are going pending right now, meaning we're probably going to see a little bit better of a December. I also think our November numbers are going to end up being a little bit better as far as the quantity of houses, not necessarily the price points. I think the price points are going to be a little bit lower, and we're going to continue to see as people are trying to sell their house and move their house. Now, these numbers that I'm talking about, and I'm comparing it to last year was horrible. 24 was horrible, 23 was horrible, December in 22 was horrible. So it's more about getting back to the norm. So where were we in like 2018, 2019? That's kind of where I say we had more of a stable market that we were seeing. I've been listening to some economists, and I've been listening to, if you know, Brian Buffini. He makes some pretty bold predictions. He's saying he thinks we're going to see like 2019. Are we going to see crazy housing markets, again? Probably not anytime soon. Are we going to see interest rates in like the 3%? No, it's not necessarily happening. If we look at since interest rates started in like 1971 or 72 that they start tracking it, the average was like a 7.71%. So we're below that. So I always like say, keep that in mind, keep that in perspective of where interest rates are today. Granted, the housing prices are nowhere near where we were 20, 30 years ago. We are significantly higher. So I understand that creates a constraint on the buyers. One more interesting thing that I found out this past week when I was listening to Brian Buffini talk about like the average home seller and buyer in the US right now. And when he said this number, it blew my mind. And I could not fathom it, but it's 64. 64 is the average seller and buyer's age in the US. Why? Well, they're the move up, the move down. So a lot of those people at 64, you're having either children have gone off, they've gotten married, you're empty nesters, you're moving down to a smaller house. So that's your sell. And then you're also buying. You're seeing that combined into two, as well as the average age of first-time home buyers is drastically going up. We're in the high 30s. I can't remember the exact number, but we're close to 40. So we are also seeing it kind of. That's why the number at 64 is so high, is that the first-time home buyers, they're not in their late 20s anymore. We're looking at the end of the 30s. We're looking in the 30s. So with that, my name is Danielle Fountain. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas. If you are looking to buy and sell in Austin and just want to have a conversation, feel free to reach out. And I hope you have a wonderful and blessed December.